Do you ever feel lonely? An average of 46% of Americans feel sometimes or very lonely at any one time, according to a study by Cigna Corporation. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, and this is Off the Couch. So 46% of Americans feel lonely or very lonely at any one time, but it actually is the worst among people 18 to 22 years old who report the highest levels of loneliness, even much higher than those over 72 years old. And what we know about loneliness is it isn't just a psychological or an emotional disorder, it actually causes many physical disorders. People with loneliness actually have severe negative health outcomes. They have increased inflammation because their body is put on high alert. They have higher healthcare costs. In fact, AARP, Stanford, and Harvard did a study that found that annually $7 billion extra is spent by Medicare on people who are very lonely, mostly for extended hospital stays. And loneliness causes early death. We actually see early deaths in 32% of those living alone, 29% of those being socially isolated, and 26% of those being lonely or very lonely. And we actually see people who feel more socially connected live longer. Loneliness is a universal experience, and most of us are experienced with our own kind of loneliness. But when we look at it, loneliness is caused by many things: physical isolation, marital status, number of close friends and family, and the amount of screen time, believe it or not, like watching TV or even spending a lot of time streaming or spending time on your phone. And maybe you're surprised about marital status. I was, but maybe not, because a lot of people in marriages report feeling very lonely. And in fact, when you see people who are lonely together, they spend less time being physically close to each other. And speaking of marriage, it isn't just that marriage itself can be lonely. People are getting married less, so they're getting together less. And people who do get married tend not to have children as much as they used to. Those are major reasons for loneliness, as well as people living alone more and people living longer, putting seniors especially at risk. Now, the definition of loneliness is considered to be a chronic, intractable longing for a connection that isn't there. But it's really hard to define. In fact, the UCLA Loneliness Scale, which is a 20-item scale that's considered the gold standard in measuring loneliness, has several questions that really point to what loneliness is. Questions like, I am unhappy doing so many things alone, or there is no one I can turn to. But if we really think about loneliness, it's the discrepancy between what you want in relationships and what isn't there. Now, what's the point of loneliness? Why does our brain have this emotion that it gives to us? Does it actually serve a purpose in survival? Well, a lot of people think that perhaps it does. It's in survival and protection. Think of loneliness as an early warning system. It tells you to get back to the safety of a group. So some of us might fantasize about being alone, but people don't function all that well alone, believe it or not. And back in the old days, in caveman days, when there'd be a saber-toothed tiger nearby, it was probably a good idea to be with other people or to be in the protection of other people. So loneliness created that longing that had you be with other people. It put the body into a stressful state of high alert that didn't remit until they were with their group or their other people. So lonely people might misread facial expressions, even vocal tones, like seeing curiosity as hostility, which in turn can not only have them react one way, but can cause the person who's trying to approach them to find them sort of irritable and back off. So this kind of goes to that 5-cent solution to a $500 problem that I hear so much when I hear the problem of loneliness, is why not just put all the lonely people together? Well, just think about it. If you put all the lonely people together, this is probably going to backfire. Why? Because loneliness increases self-centeredness, and loneliness makes people more irritable and defensive. So rather than just thinking about sticking lonely people together in a room, which is probably going to have them be very suspicious of everyone else in the room and act hostilely toward everyone else in the room, maybe the best thing to do is to go back to the person who's lonely and really key into what they value and what they want. See, Every one of us has a core value that we operate from. It's sort of like that point on the horizon that we go toward, that we are always getting to but can never actually reach. It's that thing that really drives us in our lives. For some people that might be family, for some people that might be animals, for some people it might be books, for others music. So really key into that person's values. So let's say if it's animals, maybe encouraging that person who's lonely to volunteer for things like animal rescue or a walking service. Or for books, to have that person look at volunteering in a library or a bookstore, or with music to volunteer in a choir, or to maybe even take a music class. Now I know what you're probably thinking, is there a medical treatment for this? Everyone always wants a pill or a medical treatment to try to get them to not be the thing that they are. And maybe in this case there might actually be, but it's not what you think. Actually, loneliness is very interesting because it causes the same, or social pain causes the same kind of pain that we have in our brain when we have physical pain. So people who are very lonely, when they go into a situation where there might be other people, they feel that social pain, they anticipate social rejection. So one thing that's being studied right now is the effect of pain relievers such as Tylenol or Aleve in helping people who are lonely when they enter those situations. The theory is maybe we can take away that social pain, which can help them to connect with other people. And of course, another medical treatment that's commonly used are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, pills like Prozac or Zoloft, because those can help people who have any kind of anxiety or obsessive illness to start to calm down a bit, to make it maybe a bit more easy to be in the social situations. But one of the more helpful treatments is actually cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people who are lonely to reappraise some of their appraisals about social situation, also helps them look at their own behaviors in the situation that might be exacerbating or making things worse, and gives them new cognitions and new ways of being in those situations to actually connect with other people. Actually, individual cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the therapies of choice with something called social anxiety, which can certainly lead to loneliness because people are very afraid to go into social situations. And it's quite paradoxical that social anxiety can be treated by individual therapy better than it can be by group, but some people think that's exactly the case. But not everyone, of course, can do therapy. That isn't always the treatment. It isn't accessible or affordable to a lot of people. So it really comes down to, there might be ways to do this individually, and that might be journaling. I actually would recommend individual journaling to people who are feeling lonely. There's a great website I really like and recommend called 750words.com. It's 750words.com. Go to that website and you sign up, and they'll give you a reminder every day to write 750 words. And during that time, you can just write whatever you're thinking or feeling. So if you're one of the nearly half of Americans who feel lonely at this time, maybe this is time to do something about it. Don't feel like you have to join a group right away, but maybe look into volunteer possibilities where you're going to be aligned with things that you really like to do, and don't worry about meeting other people. In fact, just go there and do your job, do what you love, meet animals or participate in a choir, and eventually you'll start to talk to and meet the people around you and have a better experience. If you can't afford therapy, it might be good to just write in a journal, 750words.com, or maybe just take out an old-fashioned journal and handwrite. But there's a possibility to help this. Right now, in our culture, loneliness is only going to get worse, so don't let it get worse in your life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, and this is Off the Couch.